Hi everyone, and welcome to the Purl Girl Knits podcast, episode 17. I am Catherine, your host. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry under Purl Girl Knits, and you can also go on the Ravelry groups page to find the page for the group of this podcast. So, welcome to any new viewers. I really hope that you're going to like the podcast, and welcome back to any returning viewers. It's been a little while. I've been working on bigger projects, and therefore I kind of wanted to actually record an episode for you guys that was worth the time that you're taking to view it. So let's get into it right away. I have a couple finishes. I have a couple of work in progress, one that I can't show you, which I'll explain a little bit later. In this episode, there will be a little bit of knitting. There is some hexagon crocheting that I do as I use some yarn for some project, and I will have a little bit of quilting to show you guys. I'm really excited about it. So let's get started. First, I will show you the sweater that I was working on all summer long. It is the Breathing Space sweater by Vera Välimäki. Hope I'm pronouncing this well. And here it is. It was a really fun knit to do. The only thing for me, because you're striping, when I got to the sleeve, when you do the body, you have enough, you have so many stitches on your needles that when you stripe, you don't really realize it because you have so many stitches going on, so you still work a bit on every row. But when you get to the sleeve, it's so short that you're literally striping so many times. So it took me a little bit to do the sleeves. I had to motivate myself to actually do it and finish it. So that I got demotivated when I got to the sleeve. So I just had to remotivate myself back. And here we go. It is now a finished object. I can't wait to wear it. The yarn that I used is Edgelock fiber for all of it on her sock base. The cream, because it is actually an off-white cream, is Silence, and it's kind of like a dirty rose color. It's beautiful. It's like vintage rose color. It is the Dusk color. There you go. Great pattern. I would recommend it to anyone who actually wants to knit a sweater in fingering weight. That's the only other thing though, if it is a fingering weight sweater, so it takes a little bit more time to knit compared to a bulky or worsted or a bigger weight. But it is gorgeous. I love it, and I can't wait to wear it. As it is now really chilly over here, we have snow and it's cold and tea time more than anything else. So this is my finished object number one. Finished object number two was my pair of socks for my September Mystery Monthly Sock Along. I finished it on the last day. That is actually that I allowed socks. So it got done. I started also fairly late in the month of September because I was working a lot. But it got done, so it was great. So there you go. I decided to do just a little bit of patterning on the foot. So this is basically the stitch that is used in the speckled sock pattern, I believe. And I used the stitch and I just did it with the Hermione Everyday Sock recipe. So that's what I've done. So there is a nice, let me turn it, here we go. It's all the way up. I didn't do it in the back. I just thought it was fine in the front. And it was really funny because I was working on a show when I was working on those socks, and I was doing it before the show and at intermission. And we had a little boy in the show, and he just thought that this was so fantastic. And so he wanted us to teach him how to knit as well. So he did a few stitches on my sock to kind of get a grip on it, but I was knitting with 9-inch circulars, so I just thought it was a little bit too, like, there was not enough. And so I was knitting with a 9-inch circular, which I thought was just a little bit too tight for somebody that has never knitted before. So after a couple of days of looking at him struggling a little bit, and I think it was actually with the needle that he was struggling more than anything else. I gave him Old Bear of needle that I had, circular needle, a cheap one that I think I bought for like $2 or $3 on a website somewhere, and a skein of yarn that I didn't know what to do with it. And so I gave those to him, and then he started his mom a scarf with it. So I don't know how it is right now because I haven't seen him for a while, but hopefully it's going well. And so I've knit those on a 2.5 millimeter, and I use a 9-inch circular to do the sock. The yarn that I used was Poppy Yarn and Fiber. As you all know, I love her. And it is the Merry Dancers colorway on the Argento sock. So it is 75 superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% silver stellina. And it is 438 yards for 100 grams of puppy yarn. So there you go. I'm not a glitter person normally, but I have to say that I like the little bit of stellina that there is in this base. It's just perfect for me. And I love the nuances that there is in this color. So there's like a little bit of blues, then a little bit of greens. It's really subtle, but it's just gorgeous. So that was my finished pair, number 1. As you can see, I have the other sock. And then I had my finished pair of socks for October. And so my yarn was the Regia Perfect sock. So it was this nice color. There's no name for the color though. I have the number, which is 07124. And I'm a toe-up sock knitter when it comes to socks. And those ones are made for cuff down. And so what I normally do it is that I take what's inside for the cuff, and then I start my toe with this, and then I go up. What I've done for this one, because I tried to get in there and it was just all tangled and I didn't want it to take the time to untangle it, I actually started with the other end, so that I would start with what is actually at the toe and knit up to the cuff. Be advised that if you do so, they put extra yarn right at the toe. So if you do this, you will not end up with this pair of socks. So after this little bit here, you have quite a bit actually of extra yarn. I'm assuming for people that want to do like longer socks or something like that. But instead of having this socks, I ended up with this sock. Not quite the same, but I still like it nonetheless. So basically, the stripe that you have right here, right after the toe, this stripe is actually this stripe. So there's an entire stripe over here that is not on there, as well as the brown that is supposed to be on the cuff. So I took the brown from the cuff and I actually did a heel out of it, so that I would still have that color in there. It's still beautiful. I still like it. I am still gonna wear it. It just didn't end up being what I wanted, because if I want to knit those socks, I kind of want to have this. They sold me on it. I bought it for this, and I didn't got this. But now I know that I always need to start with whatever they provide us for the cuff, and I need to make my way up, or I need to rewind it and figure out where, like approximately where to cut my yarn so that I can start my toes. That are the two options. But still love it, still beautiful. I made it longer than I normally do simply because I wanted to have as much stripe as I could. So I wanted to have that tiny stripe over here, and then after the stripe I started my 2x2 ribbing, and I did a longer rib to also have a little bit of the stripe to finish my sock. So it's longer than I normally do, as this is what I normally do, as you can see. But I think I kind of like that. So I'll see, like depending on the yarn that I have and things like that. But I quite like that height actually. I was quite surprised when I tried it. So I'll have to look at, because I didn't count my rows. I just went all the way up to the other stripe and then did it. And then I know that I have my 20 row of ribbing, but I don't know exactly how many rows I have between my heel and the beginning of my ribbing. So I would need to look it up. I would need to count it up and see how many I have. Once again, on my 2.5 millimeter, 9 inches circular needles. They're definitely my go-to. I love them. I have the Chiagu ones. They are a good fit for me, definitely. So I like them. What I've done with the socks, different from the other socks, is that I've started to do my the beginning of my toe slightly smaller, because as I'm wearing my socks, they are expanding a little bit and they are taking more space. So I'm starting on this socks and on my next socks as well. I've started the toe and I got to 60 stitches, and then I get all the way up. I normally do 65 rows before I do my heel. So on the 50th and the 60th row, I add 2 stitches each to get back to 64 stitches for my heel, just because I don't want to get any smaller over here, just to make sure that my feet really gets really nicely in there. So I'm trying this. It worked great on this one, so I'm trying it on the other one. And then I readjust myself and actually add in more stitches because I'm doing a cable patterning on it. And I was just, as I did the first cable, I was just scared that it would be too tight. So I did added the 4 stitches that I needed to get to 64. But if I'm doing a vanilla sock, definitely I would do that again, 60 and then get up to 64 for the heel. Definitely. So mystery month-long sock for October. And then I also had some hexagons for that right here. So I did a stripy one, and I did just a normal with the rest of the yarn was. I also had an hexagon, I forgot, for my sweater. I did it with the pink, just because I didn't want to use the white just for an hexagon, because I kind of ended up like one ball, and I didn't want to open the other one just for that. I had quite a bit left over of yarn out of that sweater, I have to say. I think it's because of the striping. So it was calling 3 balls for the pink and 2 balls for the white. I was able to actually use 2 balls of pink and just a little bit of the third one. I think that I used only for the ribbing or so. So I have a good half of a ball to 3/4 of a ball left. And for the white portion of it, I actually only used 1. So there you go. And here are the hexagon for my September sock. I've done 2 as well. I have also 2 of those. And I have 1 of each. So 2 total, but different than the other ones, for sure. So let me show you, since we're talking about socks, let me show you my November Mystery Monthly sock along. So the yarn that I got is also poppy yarn and fiber, a yarn that I got for it. And oops, it is the colorway Blue Moon. It is on her Fraser sock, but it is a single knit sock blank. And it is 460 yards, 75 superwash merino, 25 nylon. once again, let me show you this beautiful sock blank. Isn't it gorgeous? But it's the sock that everybody's knitting right now. And so I just love the cabling that you have in the middle, right over here. And so the sock pattern is actually made cuff down, and as I just said before, I like to do mine toe up. So I just adjusted, I just slightly adjusted the pattern so that I would be able to do it toe up instead of cuff down, but it is easily doable for everyone. So there you go. Once again, on my 9-inch circular 2.5mm, I had the intention of doing 60 stitches, and then I decided to do 64 just because of the cabling in there, and also because when you get to the cuff you also have the cabling in the back as well. But it's going well. So here you go. I am also working on a test knit right now. It is a sweater that I'm test knitting for someone. I have until mid-December to do so. And so I will not show it to you until the pattern is actually released. And as soon as the pattern gets released, I will be able to show you. But I'm really, really excited with the yarn choices that I've made for it, as well as the pattern. It's a beautiful sweater. So I can't wait to show it to you guys. It's in the progress. I'm about 1/3 to almost a half done. So it's getting there. I have done a little bit on my blanket, which is not really a blanket so far. It's getting there, just not quite. So this is what I have. What is new on it? Ew. So this one, which is actually the cream that I use in my sweater with this one, and see how it really looks way more cream when you use it by on its own, and when you use it with something else it kind of tames down the cream and looks a little bit more white. But this is the exact same skein, so it's really cream. This is the exact color that it is. And the pink that I also use on my sweater, and then my September sock, and I think those are the only 3 on there, but it's slightly growing, just slightly. And then I've done 2 squares of the sock again, so stripy one and just a normal one. And because I'm just I have one more spot over here that I can fill in, but otherwise I will need to add more base square down here to start growing it even more until I'm done. So, and because this is not quite, it's not really long right now, so I can easily have those 2 at different point on the blanket, and it's gonna be more than fine. So I just need to do a little bit more base squares before I continue on it, unless I find the perfect one to go in between those 2. Then I will add this one over here. Otherwise, I will do a bunch of base squares, and then I will just continue my way up. That's what I'm gonna do. So I've done that, and I'm continuing constantly to put yarn on the master ball of leftover that I'm having, and I've put some of all of them. So I have some of the white from the sweater, I have some of my September socks on it, I have a leftover black that I was just looking for a good place to put it. I just thought it was, beside this yarn, I just thought it was a good, because it's so dark, I just thought the black was a nice in between. And then I've merged the brown from the sock of October, and then just put the leftover yarn that I had from that skein. And it keeps growing, keeps growing. I'm still not too sure how much grams I have, but I guess I have at least 50 yet. Like right now, I need to at least have 50. But those things would have been little bits of leftovers that I would have before now that I would have thrown away just because I would have not known what to do with it. And so when you just add it up, it kind of starts to create a lot of yarn. So this keeps growing. And yeah, that is all for the knitting that I had to show you. And so now I'm going to jump into sewing to talk about my quilt. So if you're not interested in sewing and you're just interested into knitting and crocheting and spinning yarn, well, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time. And if you are interested into sewing, well, just stay tuned and we will get ready. Okay, so quilting. I've decided lately to actually use as much yarn as I have and as much fabric that I have into the project that I want to do to try to take down a little bit what I have in my house. And to kind of eventually also figure out what size of sash I'm comfortable with. I got to a point where I was fine with the sash that I have. I just find that right now it's just a little bit more than what I would like to. So I'm trying to use as much yarn into projects as I can, or finished project that has been on the needle for a really long time. And I'm decided to actually take that into my fabric stash as well. And I have some of them that I have a lot, and there's some of them that I don't have quite a lot. So I need to figure out what I can and cannot do with it. There's so many bags I can do for myself, let's face it. And therefore I decided that I would start quilting to actually use those fabrics that I have. Also, it's a good way to use those little bits of fabric that I don't have enough to actually do something, but still enough to actually make a piece in a quilt out of it. So I have decided to do the Surfer's Point quilt for my first quilt. Because why start with something less? It is a pattern by Adita Sitar. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong. It is an 88 by 88 inch quilt, which I am actually doing 110 by 110 inches so that it would actually fit over a queen size bed. So it's a quilt that I want to have in the living room when it's cold and we need something to kind of cover up under, but also something that I want to be able to put on the bed if it's really cold and we just need a little bit more warmth. So I had two types of fabric, which is kind of the same line but different colors, that I had quite a bit of, which is those two. So it's the same pattern, just different colors, and white and black, and white and black and black and white. So I looked it up, and the pattern calls for fat quarters for the star pattern of it, which I'm going to show you in just a little moment. And I looked it up, I took my fabric, I quickly looked at it, and I figured out I had enough to at least do the 88 by 88 inches quilt. And so I cut it up in fat quarters, and I figured out I had probably enough to do 110 by 110. I do have a little bit left over of, I have another fabric in there that I can also use if I'm realizing I don't have quite enough. The pattern is basically blocks, and it's about 22 inches per block. So the pattern calls for a 4x4, and I'm going to do a 5x5 to get to my 110. So I'll do as much as I can with those two fabrics, and if I realize that I'm making, depending on if I need to do one in a different star pattern fabric, or I can make 5 and then I would have like the center and the 4 corners different. So I'm still gonna look this up into the logistic of things that I need to look up, but this is gonna come over when I'll have most of the squares done and I'll be able to assemble and actually have a look at what is left, what is done, how I can arrange it, and see from there. So let me show you a black block. I'm so excited. I finished this right before recording today, so I'm really, really excited. Isn't this gorgeous? I'm so happy and thrilled. So this is the second one I've done. I have the white that I'm going to show you right after. The white has some imperfection in it, but it's still going to be fine for what I'm doing with it. It's just for us. I'm not gifting it away. So I'm going to be fine with it. This one is I think with the skills that I have, it's going to be as perfect as it can get. But yeah, look at this star. Isn't it fantastic? And then you have two different fibers, fabric, in the gray zone. So you have the gray that is actually the entire background fabric in all of the quilt. And then you have those little ones that are slightly different to kind of give it just a little difference. So here you go. It is not super easy. It is not super hard either. I think there's probably harder quilt out there, to be frankly honest. So this is probably a good medium intermediate quilt pattern, if I can say. The hardest thing for me, as I'm not a quilter and this is my first quilt ever, it is actually to fit the lozenge bit here to the triangles on both sides, because the lozenge and the triangles are at two different angles, and therefore it makes it hard for me to be able to get, when I assemble it, to get a straight line out of it. So this is the hardest part for me. But I think that when I worked on this on Sunday night, I was assembling everything. I think I figured out a way for me to be able to assemble those together. And it worked fine. Worked fine. Because the first time that I did it, also, I couldn't get my sewing allowance on top over here. And this is actually fairly crucial, as all the points will be meeting each other on all the quilt. So you need a sewing allowance over here. And it was hard to get that because those lozenges were not assembled properly. Also, it was a little bit harder for me to get those two triangles, so the two grays over here and the two blacks, so that corner over here, to get this as aligned as possible, because it starts to be a little bit bulky in the fabric, considering all the sewing allowance that you already have. And for me, who is not a quilter, it is a little bit harder for me to get that. But if it's something like it's not perfect, for sure it's not perfect, but I think it's going to be fine for me. It's going to be fully fine for me. So here is the black, and here is the white. And so they will be put, I don't think I have enough arm for that. So it's going to be like one star like this, and then followed by a star like that, and then going back to black, and it's just going to be alternating like this. But I'm really happy, and I think it's going to be gorgeous at the end. I really truly believe it's going to be beautiful. So now I just need to make tons more of those and a ton more of those. And then I'll be ready to look into if I need 5 different squares or if I'm all using all of that or 1 different square. So I'm not going to show it to you every week because it's basically always going to be the same stars. The fabric inside the triangles over here are going to change so slightly, but that's something you can easily look at when I'll be able to show you more at the end. So I think that what I will do, because this is going to take me time, it truly will. This is not something I can do in a day or in a week even. It takes me about like an entire day to do one of those. So I think I'll just show it to you when I'll be ready to, when it's going to be assembled, when my front panel will all be assembled, and then I'll be ready to make the sandwich with the batting and the backing. And then I will show it to you later on when the quilting will be done on it. So this was everything that I had to tell you guys for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope to see you back next time, and leave a comment or like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.